Hi everybody, my name's Alyssa Pinsker. I'm the founder of Girl Gone Global Communications, and as promised, this is day 2 of how to become a media superstar. And what we're doing is, I'm going to recap. So basically, we are learning how you can get publicity, get as seen in top tier media without hiring me, a publicist. I'm a publicist and a journalist. I'm an award-winning travel writer. I started out as a personal essayist, and I've been published in BBC, Huffington Post, Lonely Planet, Faux Doors, Cosmopolitan, all the top magazines. And I realized a few years ago that I want to help people get published just like myself. Whether you're a small business owner or you yourself want to be a writer like me. It's actually a lot easier than you think. There's a couple hacks. On my website, alyssapinsker.com, I have all these packages. One of my packages is how to kind of be on the radar for press, because it's quite a beautiful cycle where media journalists are hungry for sources. You know, they might be writing a story like due tomorrow. I run a group where people are looking for sources. There's also a very famous website where people are looking for sources. Sure, the website is alyssapinsker.com. I'll type it in 1 second. Thanks for asking. So a very famous website for sources, this is a little tip. I usually charge $300 to set up this service for people. It's called helpareporter.com. I actually know the founder, Peter Shankman. He's a wonderful person, and it started out as a Facebook group. Just like I currently run a Facebook group of around, if you combine, 21,000 top-tier journalists. Help a Reporter Out started because journalists had deadlines, and they were like, oh my god, I have to interview a fitness expert like for my article due tomorrow. I'm just imagining that they procrastinated. I need to, a lot of times, my sister's a therapist and I've gotten her a lot of press. They often need therapists, relationship. So helpareporter.com, and then what they do is they send you 3 times a day in various, what we call verticals, because if you imagine a magazine, and that's what the vertical is, it's like a column. So in these verticals, it would be lifestyle. Lifestyle is what I write about, which is like, to me, it's the fun stuff, beauty, travel, health and wellness, tech kind of falls under business and finance. I'll pull up Help a Reporter later, and you'll get these 3 times a day, and then you have to scour. But a tip I just taught my client, she's like, oh, I never thought of that. I just type into my Gmail or whatever you use, I type Haro, H-A-R-O, because that's what Help a Reporter Out, that's how they call it. And then I type Haro, and I type relationship, or so whatever I'm looking for. So say my client was a matchmaker, I'll type in relationship, dating, intimacy, maybe even sex, and then there'll be somebody who is seeking that kind of source. Does that make sense? Let me know if you have questions about helpareporterout.com. I was planning on telling you that, but I sort of started with that. I also wanted to, I'm looking up Help a Reporter right now I also wanted to recap. Yeah, so they have general queries, business and finance, travel, lifestyle, and fitness. That's how they break it up. So Help a Reporter Out, you get in there. People are desperate for sources, and my client, one of my current clients happened to find that. She said she saw it on TikTok, so now you saw it on Instagram for free. I'm not gonna make like I'm not gonna dance and like tell you. So now you know. Belle Biv DeVoe, helpareporterout.com. And my website is ALYSSAPINSKER, alyssapinsker.com. And that encompasses Girl Gone Global Communications, which is my PR agency. So on day one, should I reintroduce myself? So I'm Alyssa Pinsker, award-winning travel writer and publicist. We talked about how when you make a goal, you're going to select where your dream publication would be. And a lot of times it's Forbes. Almost everybody wants to be featured in Forbes, and that's great. I have a hack for getting into Forbes, but it's also the old-fashioned way too, which I will talk about. So you're going to think about, where do you want to be in? Is it Forbes, Fast Company, Oprah? Where do you read? So I said to pick like 3 to 5 publications, and then I said to read 10 of them. I really believe in that, because say you were like, I really want to be in New York Times. So I would say read 10 of those. I hope the sound is okay. I actually forgot my AirPods, which help a little. So that's what you should have done for your homework. And let me just look at what else. So I said to take notes on what you were reading, because you're studying the publication. And yeah, research them, take notes, write ideas. You'll get ideas from reading. And then note who's writing, like where you feel like, oh, that would fit in good there. Then who's writing those articles? Are they pitchable, or is it freelance? If it's freelance, meaning it's an open column that you can pitch, that's good. Research the people. Research, say you keep seeing that Christine Jones is writing this particular, the kind of stuff you want to get in, research her. And I even said you can snoop a little on their social media, like some of their stuff, retweet some of their stuff. But not everybody is like, I don't know how to say, like social media motivated. So my tip is always to say something about their work and their writing. Hey, I read your last article about blah, 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 and I like this line because. So it just shows that you actually are studying that person and reading their work. So now we're up to day 2. We researched where we want to write. We researched which columns we want to write and who's writing those columns, or who the editor is. So if you're pitching as a writer, you really want to find out who edits that column. If you're pitching as a source, you want to find out who's writing for that column. So here at Girl Gone Global, I think the 2 things that differentiate us the most is that, 1, we have this guaranteed publications, because there are certain publications that are literally guaranteed, believe it or not. People used to always say, you know, well, I don't know, like it's a risk, but we have guaranteed publications. So, and I have a package where we do like 1 guaranteed, and then we aim high, because Forbes is not guaranteed. Place unless you're pay to play, which is, I don't want to say it's not against the law, but it's certainly unethical. Journalists would be fired if they took money from you to write about you for Forbes. So we don't do the whole mass spray, which you would not imagine. You'd be surprised how many people do that. They make a press release. This is what most traditional publicists who've not been journalists do. They make a press release and they just distribute that across just as much as they can. And I don't know what their success rate is, but if I was, and I have been, an editor sitting at my desk in the World Trade Center at Condé Nast, and I get a pitch, or when I worked at Bust Magazine in downtown, God, what neighborhood was that? Like Lower East Side. Then, and it's like, obviously a press release, it's just not. But if it says, hi, Alyssa, I read your last piece about this. I love this line. It resonated. And maybe it's not about like, I also like skiing. you're not actually making a parallel between you and them, like, oh my God, we have so much in common. That's not the goal. That's a cocktail party. That's, you know, a great thing to do. But the goal here is that you respect and admire them. I love this line. It was extremely lyrical and haunting and stuck with me and inspired me. So that's the kind of compliment you want to give, because when I have clients and I teach them that step one is to research the editor and say something nice, they think that it's making a parallel. Like, me too, I also lived in North Carolina, and it's so tempting to do that, and maybe a little you can, but really the goal is that you respect and admire this person in authority. You're not their equal. So with my whole Gen Z crowd, you are not equal to the person that you are aspiring or asking something from. You are where they are, where you want to be. I'm not saying that you're not equal as people, but they are in the position where you want to be. And so my second tip, I always say, I said this yesterday or last time, give before you ask. So you realize that they are in a position of expertise above you. So therefore, you know they're not your equal, but still, that's still happening. Hey, Develina, 256. So what you want to do is you want to offer them something because you're asking from them. So you're going to offer, whether it's to review their book or a simple, hey, homage of, I read your work and it resonated with me. I liked what I saw. So again, we're starting to write the pitch. Obviously, this is draft. Don't freak out. Don't start this in your Gmail. Start it on, like, you know, a different piece of paper. So you're going to read them, study them, and then we're going to pitch. After you read 10 issues of whatever that publication is and research the person, you're going to create a new Word document or Google Doc. Start to save links to articles that you loved of theirs and just kind of notes, and write down the name of the person you're pitching, the person that, and then you have to research a little bit. I'll talk about this. What you're going to do is, like, say you keep seeing this name over and over, go to what's called the masthead, and let me see if I type in, because that's like kind of an old-fashioned term. It means, the masthead is like who works at the magazine. So I'm going to type in masthead Cosmopolitan magazine because that's how I would find it if I Googled it. But if not, I go on Google and I find like team or just, so I found it by doing that. I find About Us, maybe. Here we go. Jessica Giles is the editor-in-chief. Mallory Roynan is the creative director. That is art. That's the pictures and layout and art stuff. We don't need that as a writer. Sasha de Gersdorf is the executive editor. Rosa Heyman is the digital editor. I skipped over this person that's an assistant because that's like a personal assistant. And then Mel Curry's an assistant editor. I remember all these people's names. Digital editor is usually what we're reading, like that's the online person, because other than that, we're talking about in print. So if I'm a writer, I know, okay, I'm going to pitch either Rosa or Mel. You're usually not going to pitch the editor-in-chief. They're busy. They're running the whole show. So Mel is the assistant editor, Rosa is the executive digital editor. And I'm going to read some of Mel's stuff. Oh, I loved your piece on that. That was so important for the community. Thank you for doing that, blah, blah, blah. But be sincere. And that's where you're going to start crafting your pitch. Okay. So I don't know if I want to go fully into, how long have we been? Not like 10 minutes. I don't know if I want to go step by step on how to craft the perfect pitch, but I already gave you step one, which is, dear, get their actual email address. Okay, now how do you get their email address? Good question. A, you try to find the masthead where it's like About Us. You don't want to pitch info@cosmo.com. You don't want to pitch the general email. So I have a little hack with that, which is, you know, you search, you try to Google, there's always a way. And then rocketreach dot, let me check if it's com or .co. rocketreach.com. It's also a Chrome extension. Yeah. You can then, if you really can't find their name, email, then you type in their name and it'll give you pretty much anyone's email. I'm like a super private person for good reasons, and I myself try to make sure that I'm not listed in places like this, but other people are happy to be listed. So if you do find them, I'm looking at it right now, don't use their Gmail, you know, make sure it's their work address. So when you pitch one-on-one, and so we start one at a time, because if you multiple submit and you send this to 10 people, the reason that we don't do that is because what if 2 of them say yes? But if you want to try that, just be prepared to write something very different. So remember, we were studying the publications. We're going to study where your piece would fit into. So, hang on a second. Also, this applies to podcasts and television. Right, so I already said to do this, which is to like repitch them, repost their stuff on social media, maybe follow them. So this is straight out of my book, because I have 2 books like this. This is How to Get Published in Top Magazines, the blueprint. So we're up to the how to find their email address and a warm introduction. Oh, subject line is super important. Subject line is really important because you're going to say, you could put the word pitch and then colon, and then it's the snazziest, grippiest, best headline you can think of. And then you're like, well, I'm not a writer. Well, again, a lot of this is just parroting and copying, because what they want is what they already have. So if you studied Cosmo through and through, you would notice that every single headline is sort of the same. And maybe every single headline is 19 ways to blah, blah, blah. Or when I pitched Cosmo, I noticed that they kept having a thing like how to date a Philly girl, how to date a New York girl, how to date a Chicago girl. So I pitched them under that little vertical. It was a space where they needed content, and I got in under Philly. So your headline is going to be really good. But my process in writing, and I noticed that most professional writers' process, is that we're just putting this on the page, and then maybe at the end you go back and you get that perfect headline. So, you know, could even leave it blank, but a lot of times you get all the info, you write it. I always say you just like kind of pour it out on the page, and then you sculpt it, and then you make it really short. And the shorter the better, the less words to describe it. So I wrote an example. Dear Max, I found the editor Max at Go Nomad. I loved your recent article, Empire State Road Trip During a Pandemic. It was a detailed and interesting and fascinating read. I'm writing to you about a travel-related article I think would fit well in your X, you know, like column, like in your 48 hours column. I'd like to pitch, and you might count the number of words that magazine already has. Okay, I noticed that every single article in here, and you can cut and paste and do a word count, is about 800 words. By the way, most articles run like either 800 or 1500, and max like 2000 for most magazines, which is not that much. So I'd like to, 1500 is kind of the, I don't know, average. I'd like to pitch a 1500 word article about this festival, and it'll fit well because I saw that you covered Aspen last year. So I think we'll pause there, because that's all of paragraph 1, and that's a lot. And then paragraph 2 is going to be your credentials, and then 3 is that close. You know, I always put, I can include high resolution photographs. Thank you for your time and consideration. Hope to hear from you soon. Name, website, etc. And then you put it all together. So that is where you're starting to think, you got the editor's email, you know where you're pitching, who you're pitching, how you're pitching, and now what are you going to pitch? So how to figure out what you're going to pitch is, as I said, study that magazine, read like 10 copies of it. And then you keep seeing, oh, well, New York Times has this little piece there where called this, where it seems like freelancers can pitch it. And the more you study it, it'll just kind of get in your head, and then like your words will be their words. So this advice doesn't often resonate with creative writers and bloggers, especially bloggers, because they're so used to writing in their voice, and we go to get our MFA and we learn how to write in my voice. But being a magazine writer is actually about how to write in the magazine's voice. It's not your voice, actually. I mean, it's going to seep in, but you're actually learning. It's kind of like the magazine's format and then your voice. So don't go off script. If you study that magazine, you see that they always start, they always write in the first person. They always write in the third person. They always write kind of in a political slant. They always write in a fanciful slant, whatever. You study that publication and you think, what am I going to write about? So one of my clients really wants to get into yoga journal, and I said, okay, we'll read 10 yoga journals, study it, read it online. So if you're going to read it online, we're going to pitch the digital editor there. And the more you read and immerse yourself in it, then you'll start to like just get ideas. So I think we'll keep it short and sweet. Does anyone have any questions? I know I told you all about helpareporterout.com, which is an amazing way to get into top magazines, because those journalists are just desperate. Say you're a school teacher, say you're a fitness guru, they need to interview you to get into that, to do their story. I mentioned Forbes. The way to get into Forbes is to pitch Forbes, but there is also another way. I have a program for that. Yeah, I think that by the end of our next day, which is tomorrow, we'll be able to put it all together and write that perfect pitch. So your homework is to start to think about, you found the editor and you know what you're going to say to the editor, and then part 2 is start to think about what you're going to say to the editor. And obviously then there's this other little part of like, I'm a professional travel writer, published in 52 publications and lived in 6 countries, and that kind of sentence, your bio. But your bio for this is going to be way different than your job bio or your LinkedIn bio. It's your writer bio. So you can do it. So good to see you. If you have any questions, DM me. I have a special right now. If you want guaranteed press, literally guaranteed. There are certain publications that are literally guaranteed. They need to feature usually business owners, and it is the most beautiful puff piece, we say, because it's such a flattering, how did you become so great at your career? One of them is a global news network, and it has an average of, I think, something like 80 million views. This is a television network. My client is still waiting to get her copy from them. Next time, I know I will sit and record it myself. She ordered, the copy because it's a 24/7 news network. So she had a 5-minute interview, but it was amazing. They're like, how did you become such an expert in your field? Another website that is very similar, it's called Authority. They love featuring authorities. Hey, Charlotte. How's the weather in Connecticut? Another one is Voyage, and it's nationwide. They love spotlighting professionals. So you can be as seen in Voyage, as seen in Voyage has 2 different Shout Out and Voyage are the same kind of owners. Authority, Ticker, this mindfulness website, they average 50 million readers, and that's our new package for that, and I've been doing super holiday rates on that, so for the new year. And DM me if you have any questions. We can do a quick chat. If this is too hard, which it is, it's a lot, that's why you hire a publicist, but I'm teaching you how to do it yourself. So good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. And I'll be back soon. I'll put out an email and also announce probably tomorrow at the same time. I have to triple check, but good to see y'all. Happy New Year.